Hello everybody, this is episode 73 of the Pentagon Challenge, and today will mark the sort of official beginning of my first full season at Vasco da Gama. And rather than going through a live com as part of the Rio de Janeiro State Championship, instead I'm just going to do a transfer episode and talk about how I have entered the market for the first time while in Brazil, and how I plan on dislodging Flamengo on the summit of the Brasileirão. And defending this Rio de Janeiro State Championship is also a priority, but I don't consider it vitally important in the context of making episodes. So without further ado, with the explanation out of the way, let's just take a look at the fixtures list and what we have to look forward to this season. So because the Brazilian season only ended last December, it's such a remarkably long one. We can debate about it any other time, but we went straight back into footballing commitments with the friendly, first of all against Once Caldas. Are they from Colombia or something? Yes, they are. They are a Colombian team. We managed to get a 2-1 win against them, but it took a big effort in the final 20 or so minutes to secure that win. Rampla Juniors though gave us a bit of a shock. Like, we weren't at all good in that one, and they're from Uruguay, so we mightn't have been too bothered to play that game. And then the last friendly of January before the Rio State Championship began was against Remo, and they're from the Brazilian 4th Division, so they were pretty much a walkover. So now we enter the State Championship, and we've secured 2 significant wins against inferior opposition. We begin with Resende. We put the 5 goals past them, and Fernando actually gave them the shock lead, so I was very worried that something might be going spectacularly wrong, but thankfully that wasn't the case, and we had 5 different goal scorers, including a penalty against America, or America, I'm not sure how they pronounce it, but Pedro Gabriel Xavier. You'll meet him in a minute. Those 2 players managed to come up strongly in the final periods of the game to get those all-important goals that we're desperately seeking, and they were super subs as well, which made it all the sweeter for me, avoiding a potentially poor result. But now is a good time to discuss the transfers, as we play Flamengo in a home match in our new stadium. That's going to be absolutely fantastic. But the reigning champions of Brazil will want to continue their successful run against us. If you didn't remember, we can take another look at the past meetings, and we can see ever since 2020, when I opened up these Brazilian leagues, Vasco were looking pretty dominant to begin with, but then since 2021 it's been all one-way traffic, and that it has to change as far as I'm concerned. Like, look at the Rio State Championship final of 2022. That was a home advantage result, so that was disappointment. They also met in 2023 in the Rio State Championship in the semi-final, and that was Flamengo winning. So now we got a 1-1 draw out of them when we met, but I think we deserve to win, and the fact that we failed to do so, it means that this game has even more importance. So that's why we'll pay attention to it if we have time at the end of the episode. But I'm just going to now officially talk about the transfers that I have made, and we'll talk about the Rio State Championship in greater detail just afterwards. It's a pretty simple enough tournament if you get your head around it. But let's just take a look at all the transfers that I've made. We'll begin with the guys that you'll know that I've decided to let go. Ricardo Goulart, his departure was arranged very early into my tenure, and he now plays for Cruz Azul. He hasn't done too much for his new club at the minute, but I suppose it is. I think it's early days for Cruz Azul. If in their season, I don't know how it works over there. No, he should be playing a bit more often, but it is just the closing stage at this point. A lot of useless players, surplus to requirements, all let go, but Sepulveda just wouldn't sign the new contract, and I decided, okay, you can go. And Trabzonspor, were his eventual destination, and obviously I lost out on big money, as obviously he was going to go for free if I didn't let him off. So he is now playing in Turkey, and that's fair enough in my eyes. The big departure is of course Cesar Davis, though. He was wanted by Everton originally, and I turned down that offer, and I thought, okay, that's going to be the end of it, no one else will come in for him. But then, to my surprise, Arsenal's manager Pep Guardiola, yeah, I said that right, Pep Guardiola came along and asked for Cesar Davis, and I got a decent transfer out of him. I don't know, I have to remember, it was like 7.25 million, but there are a few add-ons as well. They'll hopefully bode well in the future, but it's a shame. He was a star of the future, but obviously he felt now is the right time to go, and he has a big long contract with Arsenal, who are currently lying 6th in the Premier League, so that's fair enough for him. We've sent out 2 players to Portugal on loan. Academica have now received Gabriel, a really good left back and centre back, but he demanded his loan as he felt he wouldn't get the first team football here. But I would have preferred to have him around, as he is a centre back and a left back, which are the positions I really need to improve on. He's only done the substitutes appearances for the time being. But another good player who's followed him to Portugal is Embu, who will be a striker that I will certainly be keeping my eye on. He hasn't done anything of note for the Portuguese club just yet, but he will hopefully come back even better, and you know, maybe bang in those goals that we may be lacking throughout the season. And then Kleber is another left back and centre back that no longer wanted to play for us, and he's gone to Santos, and that was a pretty poor move in my regard, but I just couldn't keep him. He said, "Why didn't you sell me to Santos?" And I said, look, you won't get enough first team football with them. He just agreed, and that sold, pretty much sealed the deal. He was going to go after that, and he's played a few games, but clearly he will not be playing anymore for another 4 to 5 weeks with a fractured cheekbone. Now let's talk about the players I've brought in, and let's begin with the most expensive player, and typically the one who got injured the day he was set to take his plane to Brazil. It is Vinicius from Atletico Madrid. He was a significant price at 9.5 million. He didn't make the grade in Spain. He's previously at Botafogo, União Madeira, Avai, and so on and so forth, but clearly Atletico felt he wasn't going to be good enough for their team. He went to Borussia Dortmund in the past, and that goes to show if he recovers from that latest injury, he could be absolutely phenomenal if he can hold his own in the German Bundesliga like that. He really could be a star player. But if you're going to pick a time to be injured, it may as well be during the Rio State Championships, when wins should be coming thick and fast, and we don't need to play our best players. Following him into the club for a cheap fee was Benavan for about €3.5 million. And I say cheap, but he is going to be a backup. I don't sense him as a first team player, but I do need left backs and I need centre backs, and he suited my criteria down to the ground. Like Corinthians put out a huge amount of money on him, so to get him for half price is sweet in my opinion. He's played in Israel previously, didn't seem to enjoy life there, but he's been all around the place, rotating with the big clubs, and now he's finally come to us, and I hope to make him a great player. We have a new goalkeeper. Perhaps understandably I should be going for more goalkeepers, but Abel Bernal could be the new number 1 shirt holder. He's come from Santos, and he's from Colombia, so he mightn't get to play every game, but he was absolutely brilliant for them last year. I don't understand why they let him go for such a low fee. It must be because of his nationality and the rules dictating what you can and can't do with players not from Brazil. But if they have a backup goalkeeper, then good for them, but from what I can sense, they don't. So that could be a big boo-boo from Santos's perspective. Like I'm sure Pele will be watching with interest with them. But he could be the new #1 goalkeeper, and we need to get a third goalkeeper in, as what was his name? I'll look it up now. Yeah, Eduardo signed a new, or he was given a new contract by a 1-year extension. I was trying to get him on a free transfer, but it wasn't going to take place. Like you can see by this report, he would have been for free, and there would have been no compensation, as he would have been, his contract would have expired in June, and that would have been perfect. But he said no thanks. Well, the club said no thanks, we're not having that. And incredibly, that guy's gone to Newcastle. That's good for him. So no nice new goalkeeper for the substitutes bench anyway. But now to get back to the topic at hand. Now this is the important thing I talked about last season. I needed wingers, and I needed them badly. So I decided one solution was bring in Marquinhos Cipriano. He can play naturally on the right hand side, but he has some ability in the centre, and then a little bit of knowledge of the left hand side. So it's a shame he can't play midfielder right at all. That would be perfect, but otherwise he could be a great player. He's here for quite a significant loan fee from Gremio. Like, they let him to go to Santos last year, and he didn't do a major job, but he did something. And I think given how he played for us recently, he could be a very handy player, and one I'd want to have around for the long term. Another excellent winger has joined the club. I was doing my homework, and I noticed that Nildo had done a fantastic job for Bahia, a team that had barely survived relegation. So Juventus got a good deal in 2023, buying him for less than 2 million. But ever since then, they've let him out on loan. He made zero impact at Cruzeiro, but at Bahia he was one of the players of the season, contributing 11 goals and 11 assists in nearly 50 league games across the state championships and the Brasileirão. So if he can do anything like that at a bigger and better club with continental ambitions, then he could be a real legend of the making. So he'll be my new left winger if needs be. And then another wide player is Gabriel Xavier, who has the most goals out of anybody so far, and yet I haven't had the chance to give him a start, which is all the more impressive. So the 30-year-old or 31-year-old has been the oldest player brought into the club. He knows his way around at this stage, but it must have took a big shake-up for him to leave Cruzeiro. They just let him go on a free transfer, and I did my research again, found that he was available. He was his wage demands were very they were very cheap, I felt, for a league as good as this one. Like, he wasn't demanding too much. So he's joined, and he will be a player I hope to start in many more games to come, and he'll certainly help some of the younger guys along the way, as he's surely been in big competitions in the past. Like, we'll just take a look. Let me see, competitions. So he's played he's played in a Brazilian Cup final, he's played in a Copa Libertadores final, so he does know his way around, but he does deserve a little bit more success given how long he was at Cruzeiro. Another loan signing from France this time is Marcao. He's only 19 years of age. It's another example of my policy to sign young players to the club. It's not a permanent transfer, but with some of these stats I would love to make it happen. The 17 technique, the 17 passing, 17 first touch, absolutely marvellous. And then his mentals could do a little bit of a boost. But at PSG, another example of good transfer business from the big clubs in Europe. But he's decided to come to Vasco, and I've had no opportunity to play him as he was serving his country in an underage tournament. If I'm not mistaken, he played one time for the under-20s and he scored, so that's excellent. So if we can get him into the team throughout the state championship and the Brasileirão, I'll be delighted. And then one last signing to talk about. I know I must be way over time with these tangents, but Martin Sosa, as a result of the injury to Vinicius. I believed I needed someone else to cover while we were getting pre-season underway and also the state championship. So the Uruguayan has, he must be an out-and-out centre-back. He doesn't look like a technical player, but these core stats with the heading, the marking, the tackling, decisions, the strength, the acceleration and the positioning are all in the very high marks, and he is, his potential could be great. The assistant manager doesn't seem to fancy it, or whoever has given me the report. 15 and 15, so he's the second best centre back at the club, but he could grow into something very special. And the fact that Boca Juniors let him join me for under 3 million euros, that says a lot. But as you can see, we spent nearly 20 million euros and we've brought in 8.13 million, so that's had a bit of an impact on the kitty. We're down to about 40 million in the overall balance, but the main thing is I've spent the majority of my transfer budget. It's down to less than $500,000, and the wage budget is still pretty big, so that's fair enough. But if we check out the pending transfers, we've got some other business happening that I have missed out on, and the first is that Atletico Madrid didn't want to give me one of their players without a little visit from their scouts, and I found Carlinhos, and they have plucked a big amount of money into him, even though he's only young. Like, it perhaps could work out against me that he's gone for nearly €1 million, but that is a lot, and he'll be going to join Atletico in July, or is that, no, that's August, excuse me, so it's a long wait, but they will be getting him in August, and that's just the way things are. And then the final signing I'm trying to secure is a backup goalkeeper, and this guy Paulinho seems to have the criteria I need. He'd be useful, so he wouldn't affect the progress of my first two goalkeepers, but if we can have 3 goalkeepers throughout all our tournaments, then we should be set. So now, before we go, we will quickly discuss the Rio State Championship and how it works if you've never seen these state championships before. So it's basically a way for all the clubs from the particular regions to play each other throughout the first half of the year. So Vasco, for example, we've played America, who are in Group B, and we will be playing Flamengo in Group B. So it's basically the Group A teams play all the Group B teams, and the top 4 qualify for the next round, and vice versa. The Group B teams play all of those in Group A, which makes a whole lot of sense. But if we look at last year's tournament, for example, you can win the championship overall. So Vasco did it last year. They were the overall champions, and then in the second stage there are more games to play. Vasco came third in this portion of the tournament, and Flamengo actually missed out, so that's extraordinary. There's a relegation playoff. That must be the teams that don't finish in the top half of the tournament, and these 2 guys went down, so let's just check them out. For example, so they no longer get to play in the Rio State Championship. I don't know how you get back into the Rio State Championship if you've been relegated. Then we head into the full tournament itself. Volta Redonda played Botafogo and lost. Vasco played Fluminense and won. That left it all down to Vasco versus Botafogo, and Vasco cruised to that victory, so I hope it's even easier for us this year. But the one thing is for certain, there are only 3 teams that are really good enough since the save began: Fluminense, Flamengo and Vasco. But Botafogo, the 4th big club to participate in this tournament, haven't won it in quite a long time. So this dates back a very, very long way. You can see it goes down all the way to the 1900s. So controversially, these tournaments do take a lot of time out of preparation, and it obviously I'd say it's a key reason why star players don't want to stay in Brazil anymore, is because of all these massive commitments. So 11 months of competition is a whole lot, but obviously there must be some solution to this that I am not familiar with. But anyway, it's just the way things are, and we have a lot of games to get through before the season begins properly in May, where we will play Internacional at home at our brand new stadium, the Roberto Dinamite Stadium, with a capacity of 33,500. That should be great fun. But the game that I'm going to bring to you for the official start of the season, the next episode, it'll be against Flamengo at the Maracana. I hope you can join me for that one. If you've enjoyed, please let me know. And otherwise, I hope to just get through the Real Estate Championship. And if we make it to the final, I will live com that with an abridged highlights package. So we won't forget entirely about this tournament, but it's not something that is worth doing regular updates about. So see you whenever I can, guys. Bye bye. Welcome back for a teeny tiny update. Things are going fantastically in the Rio State Championship. We've won our last 2 games, including getting that all-important win against Flamengo by 3-1. But the thing you'll definitely want to be interested in is the Copa Libertadores group stage draw, where we have received a first seeding. Of course, this would have never happened without the cup victory, so let's savour it while we can. So let's take a look at some of these seeds. So the reigning champions Boca join ourselves in the first pot. We've also got Flamengo, Santos and Grêmio from Brazil. Atlético Nacional are the only non-Brazil or Argentinian team here. We've got a few Chileans, Paraguayans, Uruguayans and so on and so forth. The second pot, down in pot 3, we've got Peruvian side. We've got Barcelona of Ecuador. We have a Venezuelan team, Bolivar from Bolivia, and then Penarol, I recognise them. And then down at the bottom we have the Mexican teams such as Monterrey, the Pumas and Pachuca, and then Alianza are there, Palestino, Argentinos Juniors and Palmeiras, who have qualified via the playoffs. So let's just see what happens. We will be in Group B. That's so far so good, I suppose. I would have preferred Group E. It just seems to be a more natural fit. So Universitario are alongside Independiente. We get Colo Colo. Oh, that's a bad one. They are former holders of the tournament, so that's the worst draw we could have gotten. So I'm not happy with that. I really didn't want Colo Colo, but let's just try and get them anyway. There is payback due. Caracas in Group A, we get the strongest, so we should be winning both of those games against them. Godoy Cruz, who used to have Danny Moreno, they're in Group C. Penarol, Group G. That just leaves the bottom seeds, and I presume we're going to get a Mexican team. It seems to be quite likely. Already one has been taken. We get Argentinos Juniors, so it looks like we have one of the hardest groups. Palmeiras get Group C. I'd expect them to get out of that one. Monterrey in Group E, Pumas in Group F, Alianza Group G, and Palestino get Group H. So I have to say I'm not too impressed with this group. Let's just double check if we've any history with these guys. So one moment, and we'll just quickly check. Well, this changes absolutely everything. I was hoping to get a nice run of games going, but now we can forget about it, as the strongest are going to be our very first Copa Libertadores opponents. Past meetings with them, I need to report. Yes, we've destroyed them on more than one occasion back in 2022, and then 2024 they were much closer affairs, but I still expect we can get something out of the strongest. I don't have the Bolivian Premier Division loaded. It doesn't even have former winners or anything like that, so I can only assume they've won it quite often. Yeah, so we don't really know, but they are one of the best Bolivian sides, and we should be able to put 6 points, or we should get 6 points off them. I've already commented on Colo Colo. We can just confirm for you now. This was last year. We played them all 4 times. It looked like Vasco had some sort of measure of the Chilean club, but then in the knockouts, where it all went pear-shaped as they lost 3-2 on 2 occasions. That's very upsetting to say the least, but let's try and get some payback on Colo Colo, who are the reigning champions, I assume. 2024, yeah, they've won the opening stage, and then they last won the closing stage in 2019, so that's quite interesting. And then lastly, we have to look at Argentinos Juniors. They could be the underdogs of this group, so let's just double check how they are. We've never played, so that's fine. How are they doing in the league? And they're currently 10th, but the Argentinian system is very confusing, but it is early days for them. I wouldn't look into that too much, but they are one of the better clubs, and we'll definitely be asking a lot to get a result out of them if we're not at our best. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you unexpectedly for the first Copa Libertadores game against the strongest. See you there, guys.